Hey Jen, thanks for doing this. So we thought we'd talk about kicks a little bit today. The Uechi kicks really are just variations on each other. It's essentially looking at what happens when you do a Sanshin step and how there's at least one kick suggested. So the front kick is basically the kick. Mostly in the kata we see the front kick off the forward foot, so you would maybe relate that to a slide step. That's the kind of movement you're doing there. One that comes up only in Kanshua is this side snap kick, and I thought we would look at that one. Of course, if you look at Sanshin, it's like there's no kicks here, but there is all that footwork, and I just identified Sanshin stepping, Sanshin sliding. We could probably find lots of kicking applications suggested in all the other shifts and turns as well, because they all come out of the body mechanics. But once we get to that side snap kick, it looks a lot like a normal Sanshin step, right? So these kicks are meant to exploit the vulnerabilities of the human body, in particular with Uechi. Although we understand that if Jennifer can kick me in the head, there's a very good chance that the size and the momentum of that blow, probably more that she can come up with her arms. There's a really good chance I'm going to be at least momentarily dazed, if not just fully unconscious. So there's a real risk-benefit calculation to be made. Of course, if she does kick to my head and it doesn't work, she's in some trouble, because now I've got her leg, and she's only got one leg to stand on, which I can attack. And that's typically, thank you, how we think of the Uechi kicks as designed to kick the supporting structures of the body. And oftentimes when we see these kinds of applications, you think, ooh, that would really hurt. But that's not the point of Uechi applications. The idea is worst case scenario. And if it's a worst case scenario and you're being attacked by someone who's that crazy, there's a good chance that they won't register pain, or that it won't matter enough to them. So we're looking at structural damage so that they can't move forward. And of course you can always water that down. It doesn't have to be that extreme in a situation. You can decide. But if you have a worst case scenario tool in your toolkit, you can use it less strongly if need be. So one of the potential vulnerabilities of the human body in a standing position is this flexibility, this rotation of the ankle. So sometimes people that are in terrific physical shape and otherwise pretty fortunate just happen to go off a curb wrong, and they just roll that ankle, and they can get a real sprain out of that. And it can be quite debilitating at the time. It can swell right up, and it can be really hard to take your weight on it. And so this kick, the one that most looks like the Sanshin step, Jennifer can show you on my leg. She does it slowly. You can see how she can take that ankle right off where it wants to be. And you do that with some speed and some real stomp. And you'll notice actually when Jen does that, the shape of her foot, she's really creating an edge. So she's got her foot turned this way, the opposite of what my foot is doing. So this is this kind of shape. If she was to do that for me one more time, Jen, it's this kind of shape that could potentially save me from that impact. But typically we're kind of in the middle, even when we're Sanshin. And so there is that potential vulnerability to just go right down that ankle. Similarly, Jen can stomp with that knife just above my knee. Now that could just be a quick snap to maybe take that out of alignment or do it some kind of damage. But as she demonstrated, it's designed that you can stomp and just take me right down to the ground with that. So that's kind of the stomping application and that position of the foot is real important, just to create that stability in the ankle that tends not to be there if the foot is like this. Some people are making a mistake, if I just use Jen as a target, of kicking kind of like this, and my foot is kind of neutral, and that the impact itself can start to rotate my ankle improperly. I need this strong turn to make that strong, that knife edge. So it's more this even than Sanshin is, if that makes any sense. Going up higher up the leg, this gets to be more like a front kick, where there's a shearing and rotating effect that happens. So she comes here and she's rolling me over. Maybe I'll do the other leg so you can see that better.
This leg too?
It doesn't matter which one.
Okay.
Okay, so she's she's going past the target. Actually, maybe it's easier to see with the other leg, John. Okay, so she's rolling me over, and that can work anywhere up the thigh, right up, including the hip joint, what they call the guache. And she can just pull that right out. And that's quite a sensitive area just to hit it. But to hit it and slice through can also, structurally, at least for that moment, take your balance. Higher than that, again, as soon as she goes to start kicking me in the ribs with a side kick, there's this danger, right? This is not where we want to be, but it is possible. If I go like this, she might well want to just hit her in the ribs. And that can go right up into the armpit. And that movement is quite different again, where it's more this kind of a way. And so that it's not so much about stopping, but the edge of the foot is coming across with this hard outer edge of the leg. You can kind of think of a soft underbelly and a hard outer edge, hard bony shell, soft underbelly, that kind of a feeling. So like supposing Jen was throwing a roundhouse kick to my leg or my I can just do there. And it's surprising, you can see her stance getting distorted, and it can really smart on that inside. I'm going to the inside of her leg with that outside of mine. But that's also a side kick. So how do we do it in kata? Probably a kind of a combination of the two. You don't want to get too stompy with it. You also want to get too flicky in the air. You want to keep it below your waist. So kind of the middle of those two extremes is probably your best practice kick for that kick. I'm just looking at my notes. What am I missing? I think that's about it. So I also want to talk about the mechanics. So what powers these movements? So like if I was wondering about my punch and I'm pushing it in like this, I could say, well, I feel my triceps or whatever musculature I feel engaged. But that's not typically how we think about these movements. This is a good punch. So am I using my triceps? I don't know, maybe to kind of target. So I go like this, and Jen doesn't want me to go, right? That's going to be a hard punch. That freedom of motion. That's what creates, so tensing up the leg or squeezing the muscles isn't really how it feels. I'm not saying the muscles aren't being used, but the way they feel is that they're loose and swinging. That's what we're after in the kick. So what's doing the swinging? And if I really want to control the swing of my arm, my stance is going to give me those options. So the more I get connected to the ground, now I feel like I've really got something to swing that arm with by moving my hips and really feeling like I'm directing with my whole waist. And that's how every Uechi technique should feel. That you're swinging whatever's moving with the foundational connection to the ground, use of the legs and the waist. Same thing is true when you're stepping or kicking. So it's not going with my leg muscles, it's using this to swing that leg out. I like to imagine my leg as being almost inanimate, like if I had three sticks with metal joints. Could I take this thing and whip it out and make impact? Yeah, it would take some skill, but I'm trying to develop that skill of moving something freely out. Freely, except that I want to have a toe fist, or I want to have, or my foot turned into that position that protects not just the ankle, as I mentioned, but it tends to go right up the leg and protect your knees as well. So the mechanics of stepping through is what powers these kicks. But you'll notice, straighten my front foot, step through, I'm probably not going to end up like this, hopefully. So that's actually what happens with a strong kick, is that we tend to turn that foot. So we could look at that two ways. We could say that it's a step that's a little bit longer, although that doesn't really cover the finishing position of that back leg. Closer to that is the longer stance. So if I'm standing here and I do a Sanshin step into a Kibi-dachi, I get that full pivot. So that's more the mechanics of the kick, meaning that I'm not going to send my weight all the way over there, but my foot is going to pivot as I extend the hip as much as it would be extended in a Kibi-dachi position, or a leaning stance, perhaps, if you want to think of it that way. So that's the basic mechanics of a kick. I think that's it. I think that covers all the ground. Did we miss anything? Thanks, Jen. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy your practice.